This is the Knife Blacao, and it is one of the most beautiful knives to come out in the last few years, in my estimation. And unfortunately, this is not my knife. This belongs to Dave, This Old Sword Blade Reviews, good friend of the show, and just a great guy in general, and friend of mine and a buddy, and the owner of this beautiful thing. And well, anyway, we did a knife swap for reviews. I sent him my big Dragotac Bastinelli, and he sent me this, and I'm just so enamored with it. I love everything about this knife. So from here on out, everything you hear is going to be praising of this. Even the carbon fiber I love. And I'm not a huge fan of carbon fiber, as you may or may not know. But this marbled carbon fiber is just stunning to me. This is designed by Miguel Barbudo, a Spanish knife maker. And you can really see the Spanish influence here, especially in this clip point blade. This long, abrupt clip and this belly with the abrupt turn is very sort of reminiscent of the traditional Spanish navaja, folding fighting knife / utility knife. And that's where I see the most Spanish influence here. But just a beautiful, beautiful thing. All right, so this is not something you usually see from Knife, and it's not very fashionable these days, but this is a back lock. But this is not a triad lock, or it's not a buck 110 style back lock. This is kind of an innovative back lock, something a little bit different. If you look at it, when you depress the back lock spring, you can see there's a little notch there, and there's a little metal saddle that just, or yoke, I guess you would say, locks right in there. And seems very strong. Dave, I have not done any work with this. I think he knows that. So I can't really test whether this is strong or not, but I have this sneaking suspicion that that is a very strong lock. So it's interesting and different. Usually you're used to seeing you might see a bolster lock on this, or a frame lock, or a liner lock, but no, indeed this is a back lock. And it's a one-hander like most cold steel back locks. You can close it just by pressing it down, keeping your finger here. That interrupts the motion of the blade right there on the tang. It's not going to cut you if your finger is forward. And then you can just close it up. About this back lock, since we're talking about it, when it first came out, and don't try looking. I've looked everywhere. I cannot find one of these for sale. I snoozed on it when it first came out, even though I liked it. And, well, you snooze, you lose. And I can't find these anywhere. I'd love to have one in my collection, though. But some folks were a little put off by the back lock. And when you close it, it comes to this point here. And then you click it in. Conversely, when you open it up, if you give it a weak flick, it'll kind of stop there. See, stops right there. My advice, don't be weak with it. Just give it a little juice and it flips out. I think I gave it a little wrist there, but I know I've done it without giving it wrist. It can be done. Okay, so maybe it requires just ever so slight amount of wrist, but hey, who doesn't move their wrist? But are we all walking around with inoperable wrists? I think not. Look at that. I mean, that is beautiful. Here's Miguel Barbudo's maker's mark, and S35VN in that super tiny, discreet script that Knife likes to use. While we're in this close, look at all the nice chamfering along the blade. Wow, that's beautiful. Very pointy, extremely sharp. This is saber ground, not hollow, but it still it feels like it's a hollow grind when you cut through paper with it. And that's all I've cut with this, but it is sickeningly sharp, nauseatingly sharp. barf-inducingly sharp. So here you got When you look at the bolsters from this angle, you can see that they are integral with the liners. So that's just one piece of titanium on both sides. It's not an integral folder here, but the bolster is integral to the liner, which means they have a liner about as thick as that bolster, and then they carve away the bit where they're going to put the carbon fiber, which gives it a really solid feel and a nice sound. I'm pretty sure that's that nice sound is part and parcel of that kind of construction. You've got a nice sculpted deep carry, or not deep carry, but a nice sculpted titanium clip with a little bit of jimping. We see that on a number of Wii knives and Civivis. I like that. I like that there's a little jimping there for handy removal. Got a little lanyard area there. And this bird's beak is really nice. Now, it leaves my hand, my medium-sized hand, quite a bit of room. But when I put this in more of a saber grip, like this, it's very reassuring to have there. Ordinarily, I'm not a huge fan of double finger choils, but this second little groove there is very subtle. So it does not sort of force your hand into a position that you're not going to want, that's uncomfortable. So if I have it gripped in a hammer grip like this, or a Filipino grip like this, or a saber grip like this, they all feel comfortable with that second choil. And then the way this chamfer here is kind of flared in that direction gives you a very favorable feel in this saber grip like that. Not only that, but it gives you nice access to the access and directional. It's sort of directing you the best direction to flick it out, you know, like these kind of things can do. You've got the very subtle Wii logoing right here on the pivot, which I like a lot, instead of writing it all over the blade. Beautiful stone-washed acid finish. And yeah, look at that. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful knife. I have told Dave, or informed Dave, that if he ever decides to sell this, I want right of first refusal. I'm very, very wanting of this knife. I really want to have this in my collection. But right now, it doesn't seem possible. I just cannot find it anywhere. So I think secondary market or good friends like Dave are the best options right now. And it seems like people are holding on to these. I don't think I've ever seen one of these posted for sale. The family is making all sorts of noise off screen. I'm sure you're probably not hearing it, but it's distracting me. It's distracting me, children. So where did I leave off? Okay. Oh, the size of this thing. Now look at this. This is a 4 and almost a quarter, maybe 4.2 inch blade, depending on where you measure from. I guess right there it's 4 1/4. And if you do it from there, it's 4.187, something like that. I don't know. But so that's another thing about this knife that I really, really am psyched about, is how very, large the blade is. I do like large bladed knives. 4 inches is perfect. 4 1/4 is even perfecter. And this really fits that bill. So I have let's see, 6 knives to compare it to. And the first one is for size, the ZT0452. Sometimes the numbers 0452, which is reportedly a 4.2 inch blade, but I'm not sure where they're measuring from. But you can see it's about the same size as this ZT, which is very known for its size. Sleek and slender, but long. So that's what that looks like. And you know what? Maybe I should get, just for reference sake, because that's what people know, I'll show it with the Paramilitary 2. It's like kind of a yardstick in many ways. Here it is with the Paramilitary 2, dwarfed by the Paramilitary 2. I like it. but not as much as I like that. So let's get this out of the way. This is a great knife. I'll never get rid of this. I'll never get rid of you. Sinkovich, love his designs. Secondly, here's a knife that is different in a lot of ways, but I just think they kind of went to the same summer camp or something. This is the Boker Squale, and it's a production version of Charles Marlow's Squale. And if you don't know Charles Marlow, check him out on Instagram. He makes some of the most, to my eye, beautiful, beautiful knives out there. And they're very elusive, hard to come by. I think it takes a while to make them. They're quite expensive and exclusive, but just astoundingly beautiful. So this has that Italian racing boat look that I often talk about. To me, it kind of has that slick European feel to it. It's got a beautiful sort of designy look, even though I think Charles Marlow is a California person. But these to me are spiritual cousins. Let's put it that way. Yeah, awesome. So let's put it there. And then not for nothing, they're also bolstered with the slanted bolster and the sort of grayed out titanium. Let's see. Yeah. Let me show it with, now I'm not sure why I'm showing it with this, but I keep thinking of this knife when I'm but when I'm holding and considering this knife. And I think it's because it's one of my finest, examples of high-end Chinese knives, and this is definitely a high-end Chinese knife. I think this is one of the more expensive Wies. I think it was about $275 when it was around. This, of course, is the K2 by Riot, an in-house design, and love their machine ground satin. Just a beautiful blade, beautifully ground. This would be a nice one to see with this kind of treatment, to see the grinds. That's another thing about this Squale that I like so much. You can see those grind lines. Look at those. Look at those two blades together. It's like they could go off and do great things together. Okay, three more. Now this is the Patata by Emerson, by Spyderco. And the reason I pulled this out is that the curve of the blade, they remind me of one another. This Patata is a traditional Italian folding knife from Sardinia, I believe. And this is obviously a modernized interpretation of it in terms of materials. But I think you take a look at the Patata, if you look it up, this is pretty much exactly what they look like, just usually in different materials. But it's this sort of curve right here, this straight and then abrupt and then straight, but still being a bellied blade. They kind of remind me of one another. And what I mean by bellied blade is it's not a tanto, obviously, but it has an abrupt curve, an abrupt angle change in the blade. And incidentally, or consequently, gives it a very acute front tip section. These two knives are very cool. Very, very cool. Again, the Patata is not a small knife, but next to this, it approaches small. It's definitely more delicate feeling. If you look at the spines, you'll see how tiny the Spyderco gets, and it's fully flat ground up at that tip, so a little less robust. All right, two more. Here it is with my vaunted and much loved Bowie XM24 Hinderer Bowie, and I pulled this out because it's a large clip point and also with a beautiful blade, just very different, but kind of, I would put them on the same shelf probably. And then lastly, but not leastly, is the old, probably the closest thing to a Spanish Navaja that you can put up next to this is the Espada by Cold Steel. And this is the large Espada, not to be mistaken with the puny Espada or the XL Gigunda Espada. This is like the perfect size, 5.5 inches, and you know, it's got that curved handle. This has a much more straight handle, but that bird's beak kind of does the same thing in that it accommodates the curve of the blade, and it also gives you, well, tail end purchase, so that it's not going to come out of your hand this way. Something that this little sub hilt thing here and this curved horn does. So love this knife too. And again, you have the bolster with the angle and the Spanish design cues. So Dave, thanks again so very, very much for letting me borrow this knife. I really adore it. And like I said, I'll say it again and again and again and again, like I have before. If you want to get rid of it, let me know. Let me know. I'll give it a good home. I really will. Even though it's got this strange back lock, I'll take it in. I think the other knives in the collection will like it, and I think they'll all get along famously. So, well, keep an eye out for the Knife Blocao on the secondary market, and if you see it, let me know so I can buy it. All right, everybody, thanks for watching.